If I can just, it's an exponential decay, moving on. Or do I have to explain to you what it means to be exponential decay and try to do things with as little graphing and as few equations as possible? Okay, but if everybody's had calculus or above, I'm not asking that you got an A in calculus, just that you've seen it. Okay, so then I can change what I do. And almost always, you have to have at least algebra to take my class, but finite is the most common answer. I don't even know what that means. That's just a math class on our campus. I've asked around. I have no idea. It sounds like pre-algebra to me, but knowing that, I can gauge how I'm going to address anything mathematical in my class. Can I use graphs? Can I use equations, etc.? And then that's going to help me a lot because it's going to be more up-to-date information, and it's self-reported, so I have to take that with a grain of salt, but it'll help me. So it's deja vu all over again, right? Do I need to teach this again? If I'm teaching in a freshman class and you just had AP Chemistry, my class is really boring for you because it's meant for all first-year science majors. And so I want to know, okay, do you all remember this, or do none of you remember this, or do just the people who are really bored in my class remember this? And so have they forgotten? Can I quickly remind you? Sometimes asking you this, you're like, oh, I don't remember, but I should probably know that. Okay, and so we can do something like in general chemistry, we're coming back, and we just did Gen Chem 1, and now we're in Gen Chem 2, and we've been away from solutions and concentrations of solutions for a while, and I can say, hey, you remember molarity? Tell me, what happens to the amount of salt in a beaker of water if I add more water to it? Right, and they have to think about that, and they really don't have to think about that too hard. You say, well, wait, you just added water, what happens to the salt? But so you don't even have to really remember the old class, but you have to, I'm trying to jog your memory. In my inorganic chemistry class, pChem is a prerequisite. They never understand why, and so I sort of try to drill it into them early that pChem is a prerequisite. And so we throw out some really complicated equation that really isn't that big a deal to them, and sort of, well, eigenstates and all sorts of stuff, and it goes, oh yeah, I remember pChem, or I should look that up. So I might say to you, okay, well, there's another sort of think, pair, share thing. Okay, which of these is the coldest temperature? 0 degrees Celsius, 0 degree Kelvin, or 0 degree Fahrenheit? And so just vote. Don't even think about it too much, just vote. Okay, and so I might say, all right, that's interesting. Well, remember, ooh, wow, all right, really, my class is dominated by 0 Kelvin. So 64 to 40, I might move on. I might not, though, and say, well, that's not really good enough because we really need to understand that this is our temperature scale. Okay, and so you remember that there are 3 different temperature scales. And when I look at the 3 different temperature scales, we as Americans operate under Fahrenheit. Nobody else operates under that, so it's kind of a silly system, right? So here's Celsius, where the whole rest of the world is operating, and where my brain, when I'm a chemist, has to think. And I have no idea how cold it is outside in Celsius, but in my lab, I know what I want to do in Celsius. I know where I need to heat or cool. Okay, so I admit I have a disconnect here as well. And then there's this Kelvin scale where I want to do all the math. I want to do all the math in Kelvin because this can never be negative. This number can never be negative. These numbers, I'm sure you've seen and you've been experiencing that these numbers can be negative. That being said, talk to your neighbor about what you think the right answer might be. Blah, 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 blah. You chat a little bit. Okay, let's vote again. It's 2, just in case there was any doubt. Okay, we're not really teaching today. All right, I'm like, we're not really teaching today. Not trying to teach anybody anything, so it's 2 in case there's any doubt. The whole, it can't go negative, and then they talk to each other and say, well, it can't go negative, so it has to. So. All right, and so then we can do comparative linking if we want, and I can sort of show you that, look, before we remembered, it was this, and now, and if it's not something we're remembering and I'm actually trying to teach something, that sort of think, pair, share can also give me your gut impression, or give me the did you do the reading, and then the discussions. And this is probably the one thing I actually did learn from that physics class that I hated, was that was the part I really liked, talking in class to my neighbors about what was going on. And so the whole concept of concept testing and think, pair, share in a large lecture hall with 290 of my closest physics friends was sort of, it was a good take-home message. All right, we're kind of on time. So life isn't always easy. It doesn't have to be introductory material to make this work. Here's another type of way to make a picture slide. Turning Point actually has a picture slide function. Jeff was doing it a slightly different way last night, but you can actually just kind of go in there, make your things, give them names, right? I just type these names in, fan blade, peppermint, playing card, coffee cup, and sort of I ask you which one has a mirror plane. Or I can make up a picture again and just label them ABCDE and hide the ABCDE behind there. The picture slide function does not make the pictures look the way Jeff had them. It does these little arrows. Okay, and so you have to pretty much do anything you want before you insert the pictures, because once you've inserted the pictures, you're sort of at their mercy. But to give them names and things like that, you can still double-click, as Jeff showed us last night. But just another way you might do a picture slide is just to actually use the picture slide functionality. There's a little palette-looking thing on the top. Okay, so it doesn't have to be easy to use clickers. My seniors aren't really excited to spend money as seniors for something the campus adopted, but I bribe them and pay them in points. Okay. We can also do acid-base chemistry, another way to use those sort of picture slide functionality and sort of just kind of sew some things up there. And I really like to just show the same picture over and over and over again and keep changing the question, because then I know they're reading the question and not just memorizing, oh, for that picture, it's this. And so concepts of pH and Ka versus pKa and things like that, I think we're going to hear a little bit more about that in the next lesson. So when buffers, they always love buffers, and so we can talk about those things with similar pictures. And all of these, of course, pictures are just taken from their textbook or a competitive textbook. And so all's well that ends well, sort of. Customer satisfaction data, these are totally unscientific because this is for the small class. Right? These are all for small classes. This is my first semester where I've had the huge class, or bigger class. The fall is when we really have the really big class. So we're doing this on ends of 25, a tiny lecture. Right? So 25 people, 20, 25 people. And so they felt, I don't know, in this unscientific survey, they felt like they agreed that it made them feel like they were learning the material better. And they felt like they were feeling more engaged. So student perception, awesome. And really, isn't that what it's all about? Because when we always look at the data with educational stuff, it's all about student perception. Because then, as we heard yesterday, when it gets to performance, I don't really notice a huge change. Like, I have to tell you that. At least on exams. In talking, in places where we can converse and you're forced to write down what you know and understand, I've noticed a huge change. But in actual numerical value on exams when they're forced to perform under X time constraints, etc., haven't seen a big change, and that's a little bit frustrating, and I'm working on ways to improve that because I don't want to teach to my exam. I really would much rather I tell them I don't care what grades you get. If you understand everything the second after you walk out of the exam, then you're like me, right? I had so many exams where I'm like, oh, now I get it. Dang it, right? That's annoying, and that's why I offer them sort of second chances and take my exam again. It's worth 5 points to take the whole exam. Well, you want points, right? Take the whole exam. I gave you a chance to earn 100. Now you can earn a 5. Right, and so, do you learn the material? Right? Do you want the 5 or not? Fine. Don't take my 5. Spit on my 5. Go ahead. Right? And so I offer them a chance to learn it a second time. Okay. And so they feel more engaged. They feel more involved, and that's really in a big lecture hall for me, or bigger lecture hall. That's one of the most important things because I do think that you get what you put into it as a student as well. And so if you can go to any university, and if you're willing to invest the energy, you'll get a good education. And you can go to the greatest university in the world and just sit there like a bump on a log and get nothing. And so I want you to feel invested. And this is my sort of, did you pick up anything useful? I don't know, comedy relief, whatever. I don't care. Okay, and then I give you the option to abstain, but really. Okay. All right, so that's just me. Thank you very much. I'm glad you learned something. Okay, so I couldn't have done it alone. ISU sort of made the commitment to go with a clicker system, and that was big because I said I'm not doing this until we pick. I picked Mallard. Probably none of you have heard of Mallard. That's because it died, and so we had to adopt WebCT. So I started over, and let me tell you, it's no fun to start over when you've invested a lot into something you believe in. And so I believed in clickers, and I knew I was going to pour my heart and soul into this thing, and so I refused until we decided, is it e-instruction or is it going to be Turning Point? I'm not picking until we pick. And so when you're doing it on a small scale and you don't have to adopt, go ahead, start small, okay? Like the old days with the web. Just put your syllabus on the web. That's a good web presence to start, and then build from there. Okay, so if you're going to start in a small adoption setting where you're just going to deal them out, go ahead, have one class a semester. And then if you do that over time, you'll build stuff up. Okay. NSF gave me some money to sort of try and put this into community colleges around me to develop some modules and then try to put it into the community colleges. Doug Smith and Sarah Wolzinski were big on our campus as well. And these are my guinea pigs, right? I tell them they're my guinea pigs and that we're going to learn together. And so then I can get away with almost anything. So thank you very much for your attention as well.